You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentek Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentek Consultants. I can't even pronounce our own business name anymore, Rocco. I'm getting old.
Boy, it's been a rough day.
I'm telling you, man. Rocco keeps making me work these 12-hour days, 6 days a week. So if I sound stupid, it's all Rocco's fault. It's not because I'm actually stupid. Well, all right. It really is. But let's not go there. So
let's let Travis weigh in.
So we have a guest in the studio today, folks. Mr. Travis Fischer, who is the Virtual Design and Construction Director over at Kinsley Construction, is back with us again. Thanks for being here, Travis.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's always a pleasure. So today, we're going to be talking about how company culture impacts your technology decisions. I wanted to talk about this concept, right, of company culture, right, and the impact that it can have on technology decisions. So let me start it like this. Let me start with what I think of when I hear the term, company culture. I think of the prevailing attitude of a company, right? It's the way that people work together, how they interact, both with other people inside their company and outside of their company. Does this company like people who have new ideas, right? Or is that frowned on? Do they encourage experimentation, or do they just want predictable efficiency from everybody, right? I think that each firm out there has their own culture, their own attitudes, and I think that it impacts everything that they do as a company. And that's how I think of it. All right, but Travis is here because he's actually done a good bit of work on understanding and developing technology answers that are built around these specific company cultures. So Travis, right, since you're our expert today, how do you define company culture, and why is it even important to identify it?
Yeah, so I think first off, I think that's certainly kind of a loaded question, and I know it's purposeful, and I think there is really no wrong answer in terms of what company culture is, and I think what you described is absolutely company culture, and I think if you would look it up or Google it, there'd be a lot of different definitions per se of what culture is, and all of them generally being the same thing and all correct. How I like to kind of define company culture is it's not just your fancy slogan on your business card or your tagline on your website. Sometimes it is, and we all love to believe that our cultures do line up with what we call our company slogans or our core values or our mission statements.
Right.
But I honestly think that culture goes much deeper than that, and it's much more behavioral, kind of like what you're getting at. It's how people work together and communicate together, and I think it has to do a lot with integrity. It's kind of what goes on when no one's watching kind of thing. Are your employees doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are they coming up with new ideas or better ways to do their business? Or are they just kind of going through the motions? And I think that day-to-day interaction with your employees really ultimately dictates, what your culture ultimately is at your company. And I think the other kind of important thing to note with that is culture can obviously change and it kind of ebb and flow with different influences within your business. So just because your culture is good, bad, or indifferent today doesn't mean it can't be, changed tomorrow.
Okay. I think that's a fair assessment. I think that means that, our company culture here is like one of the seven dwarves. We'd be sleepy because Rocco naps at his desk all day. He doesn't actually do anything. So, all right. So I agree with you, right? I think that, knowing the who and the what of, the people and the processes that you're working with, it's important in any decision-making process, right? But I think it's particularly vital when you're trying to make technology decisions, because I don't think not every firm is going to adapt well to or even be willing to use, right, the same technologies and processes. I think if you have a company that's all about face-to-face client interaction and personal relationships, than trying to bring in automated emails and CRM tracking systems. That's probably not going to go too well for you. All right, even if that those are more efficient processes, it's not going to be adopted by those people, and it's not going to play well in your environment. I've said this before. I think that technology needs to adapt to the needs of your users, not the other way around, right? Or as I fit the tech to the people, not try to force fit the people to the tech. So when you're planning a technology upgrade or a rollout, you need to understand the personal features of the company that you're working with. So Travis, what are some indicators that people can use to kind of help them understand their company's culture?
Yeah, so I'm sure some of us all kind of already know what some of these indicators are. Maybe we already have a good sense of how our own individual companies that we work for kind of look at some of these things. But you kind of hit on it there early on was how does your company respond to new ideas or someone challenging the status quo? Is that received with, hey, maybe we should talk about it. Maybe we should look at new ways to do things or new softwares or processes that we could implement? Or is it met with, no, you know what, that sounds great, but this is the way we've always done it, which is my least favorite sayings.
You and I both. We've talked about this before. That phrase should be stricken from the English language and never touched again. I hate that statement.
Absolutely. And, just because that's the way we've always done it might be a true statement. It can't be the reason, just because you brush your teeth every day and that's the way we've always done it. It might be true, but it's not the reason that you brush your teeth every day.
That's absolutely correct. It's a good point, right? We don't brush them because we're supposed to. We brush them because we need to, right? If there's not a good reason, then you're just wasting time and effort. So, all right. So that's a good point. So, I do think that this is an important topic, but I also think that it is one that a lot of companies just ignore. It's not always considered before people get involved in implementing a technology process. And I think that works to the detriment of both, whatever project you're trying to pilot and to the company itself. I mean, a lot of times people who are in charge of technology, guys like you and I, Travis, right? We're focused on the efficiency, right? And the perceived benefits. Even we're looking to say, hey, there's going to be cost reduction, so the boss is going to love it. And we can ignore or miss that human factor that I think needs to be addressed in any technology discussion. We tend to get so focused on, the new toys we're playing with. And I think that's an area that Rocco actually focuses on for us here at Zentech. I know that because he yells at me when I get too tech focused with our clients. So let's get his input here. So Rocco, how do you approach the process of feeling out a client's culture when you first get involved with them? I mean, I know that after we've worked with them a few times, we sort of get a feel for who they are and what they do and what they like and what they don't like. But where do you start with that process when you first reach out?
I think you start with just having a civil conversation. Really trying to listen in. I think listening is the biggest key. What are their pain points? How frustrated are they? I've taken calls where people they're just so aggravated. I need a change. Okay, well, tell me about it. So, listening to them is hugely important. And I think that's really where to start. I also think that the more people, the more chiefs there are in an organization, the more difficult it is to get to make progress, to get people to agree. But it definitely starts out with listening and understanding people's pain points.
Right. And I mean, you're just to kind of follow up on that, what you just want, when you're talking to people the first couple of times, right? They don't know you, you don't know them. Do you find that talking with one or two representatives on the tech side, does that give you a sufficient understanding of a company's culture, or do we have to delve deeper in and get into more direct meetings and involve more folks?
No, it takes time. I mean, depending on what you're doing, right? Here at Zentech, if if we're talking to people about one class, one of our public classes, it's a simple discussion with one-on-one. But if you're talking about, deploying a technology like Procore, for example, it takes a long time. It takes a lot of conversations with multiple people and trying to get people to agree and so on.
Yeah. You agree with that, Travis? I mean, do you find that dealing with more and more people is better to help you kind of find where the culture lies, or one or two people enough?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of agree with Rocco there. I mean, I think as you start digging in and you start getting into the layers of a company and you start dealing with the different departments, you do start to get a sense of, where they're coming from and maybe what they want to say without actually saying it. You start to read between the lines. But I do think that does take time, and that really is that relationship building.
Okay. All right, I think that's fair. So I think we can kind of say that, understanding a company's culture, right? Even if it's your own company, it isn't always an easy thing, right? There's some work that has to go into it, and there are some pitfalls as well, I think. You need to proactively consider the culture and how it's likely to respond to your new technology long before you get around to actually trying to implement it. And I want to get into that process in a bit more detail, but before we do, let's take a quick break here to listen to today's sponsor. And when we get back, we'll dig into Travis's brain for more info on the best ways to do exactly that. Alrighty, folks, we'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, Rocco, so we are sponsoring ourselves yet again today. What is it we want to talk about?
We're going to talk about me today, Jim.
No one wants to talk about you. Not even you.
Oh, fine. Let's talk about Zentek Tech Blocks.
Awesome. I like Zentek Tech Blocks. Zentek Tech Blocks are prepaid support hours that let you call on Zentek's experienced technical staff to address all your support questions, problems, help you with workflows and standards, really anything you need on the technology side. We're here to provide the support you need so that your most talented people aren't being dragged into helping everybody else in your company instead of working on the billable jobs that you need them focused on. All right. So Zentek Tech Blocks are available in multiple sizes. We sell them in 5-hour, 10-hour, 20-hour, and 40-hour prepaid support blocks. And if you're interested and you need that sort of help, Rocco, how do they reach out to us?
Yeah, hit up our website, zentekconsultants.net. Give us a ring, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentekconsultants.net.
All right, Zentek Tech Blocks, the vital support that your people need exactly at the moment that they need it. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We are talking with Travis Fischer from Kinsley Construction today, and we're getting into the impact of company cultures on technology adoption. And in this segment, I wanted to get into more of the nuts and bolts of how to identify and work within your own culture to sort of develop a successful technology plan. Now, like pretty much any project, right, there are always potential issues and problems when you're trying to put together a detailed plan like that. So, Travis, what do you think? What are some of the common hurdles that you and other folks who are in similar positions to yours go through when you're trying to look at combining both culture and technology in a positive way?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll speak from some personal experiences that I've had and, others that I've known within the industry. And I think just us in the whole technology world, I think the first thing is sometimes we just get caught up way too much in the technology. And, it's really easy to go chasing the shiny object. And there's a lot of great new features and a fancy new button that was added to this program. We just can't wait to go tell our CEO how much money it's going to save or how much time it's going to save. And that sounds really good, and we love technology. But sometimes, we get overwhelmed and too singular focused on the technology side, and we don't always recognize the business side of it. So saying that I've heard, I honestly forget where I heard this at, but it's a saying I like to repeat a lot, and I do take to heart is, and it was very enlightening for me when I first heard it. Technology is a solution that's looking for a problem. We always have these great solutions in the technology world. Solution. And they all are valid, and that's great. But we need to understand what problem we're trying to solve. And that problem needs to be a business problem. So in order, a lot of common hurdles that we all run into as technologists, hey, we go to our boss or manager, hey, I want to try this program. I want to buy a laser scanner. I want to buy a drone. I want to buy XYZ software. First thing they say is, what's it going to give us? And we say, hey, it has this new feature and it has this new button and it does this new thing. And they go, well, that's great, but it doesn't sound like it's really relevant right now. Come back to me in 3 months. We'll talk about it again. Right. You go back to your office and you say, well, why isn't he buying in? It's because your idea and your presentation of your new idea is too focused on the technology side and not enough on the business side of things and where that business problem truly lies.
Right. No, I think that's an excellent point, right? Just because you got a solution, not every company has that problem. So just because the solution is there doesn't mean it's perfect for you, So, and like I said, I don't think that it really matters which industry you're working in or what technology you're looking to implement, right? You're going to face issues like this. Look, you can be an architect putting in a new BIM tool or a plumbing contractor who wants to add, the latest version of their estimating system. You're going to bump up against some hurdles and some issues related to the culture that you're altering. And look, make no mistake, all technology is disruptive. All technology is going to alter your company culture, even when you don't mean it to. I think that, the simple act of installing a new piece of software, that changes how somebody works. And if you change how somebody works, that changes their attitude. And if you change someone's attitude, it changes how they respond to other people in the company. And that changes how they respond. And it's a chain effect that changes your corporate culture, right? There's no way around that. Any kind of change in technology is going to have an impact. And even if it's a positive impact, or you see it as a positive impact, not everybody else necessarily will. So Travis, what kind of tips can you give the listeners here to help them kind of overcome those hurdles that that they're likely to run up against when they're trying to adopt a new technology to kind of avoid the clash with corporate culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really think you need to align your technology vision with what your leadership at your company, what their vision is. If they want to grow to new markets, they want to take on new clients, they want to grow regionally, anything that they want to do in terms of their goals. Now you know what their challenges are, what their quote-unquote problems are. Now we can start looking for technology solutions that might help them achieve them. And if our technology goals start aligning with their goals, now all of a sudden your vice president, your CEO is going to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I am up for listening to that idea a little bit more. Maybe I am willing to invest a little bit of money into that program because that achieves what I'm trying to achieve. So really understand, what your leadership cares about and try to align your technology needs with that as well. I think another thing that kind of helps, I know it's kind of a buzzword within the technology world, is the saying of failing fast. But I think it is a true statement in the sense that, you kind of want to get all the bad ideas out of the way. You kind of want to get through all the software that doesn't work right. You want to try to break the software or the new process that you're trying to find all the pitfalls with it. And the more holes that you can fix through when you're trying to implement it, when you actually roll it out, all those problems won't resurface again, and you have this terrible implementation of a new software. And then we all know how that goes when you don't get buy-in at all, and then it just sits on the shelf for 10 years.
Right.
So failing fast really does help get through some of the challenges that you're having, trying to implement this new piece of software, trying to, install this new, app on your phone, trying to use a drone, whatever that might be. And I think the very last kind of piece of advice is always look for that first supporter. Who's that first person at your company that's going to back you and has that same vision as you? We all love for it to be our managers or our bosses, and that makes it easy. But sometimes it's not that person. Maybe it's the young intern that you just hired. Maybe it's your older superintendent out in the field. Whoever it is, find that first person that's truly going to get behind what you're doing, and start growing it from within in terms of almost like a grassroots movement. When you get 3, 4, 8 people all asking for the same thing, as opposed to just you, the technology guy, it's a lot easier to sell from a business perspective.
Right. And I think that idea that you poured out of the business perspective is vital. I think you'll all be amazed at how very quickly corporate culture turns around and everybody is all very, very happy and positive when what you're proposing lines up with where the company wants to go. It just keeping that business process in mind makes a big, big difference. So, all right, Rocco, let's bring you back in here. So, on the Zentech side, right, how do we address our company culture when we make changes? I mean, you deal with that more than I do. You're the people guy. I'm the tech geek who wants to play with the new toys, right? I'm the guy Travis was talking about going, ooh, shiny button. So how do we address the impact to the benefit ratio within our own company?
I think it's a little bit easier or more easily addressed with us because we're a smaller firm versus in a larger firm. But I don't, I don't think that it's, I like to get input. I like to let people know what's going on. It's not, I don't like to all of a sudden just drop change in people's lap because not all of us react to change in the same way, and I think that when people are thrown change all at once, then it really angers them. It frustrates them. It stresses them out. So I think it's important to keep people in the loop as to what's going on. And, if you're sizable enough to really to formulate pilot groups that are going to give that feedback of what's going on in each different department and how people are going to react to technological and cultural changes.
Okay, that's a fair assessment. And then like so I think we kind of addressed the stumbling blocks, the potential issues, but I think that on the other side of that coin, I think there are also some positive steps that you can take in understanding kind of the tone of your company, and how people and the culture is likely to respond to a proposed change in your workflows. And I'm sure that some of those are pretty simple, common sense stuff, right? Talking to people, right? Like Rocco said. Getting to know what they need, what are their pain points. Those are all the basic things I think come to mind for most of us. And then I think that, with a little bit of forethought and some planning, you can choose the appropriate technology for your firm and have it actually blend into your culture instead of kind of disrupting it. So, Travis, what's your approach when you're trying to get buy-in or implementing a new software or a technology? How do you work to make the change or changes more palatable for everybody involved?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly hit on a bunch already here. I mean, finding that business need is certainly, step one. But I think moving past that, once you find that business need, then you need to start, taking it to that next level. What does that mean? Who's it going to impact? It's going to impact people. It might impact outside departments that you don't typically work with. It might impact current processes. It might replace a current process, or it might add to a current process. So you really need to know who and what it's going to impact, and then start getting buy-in from those stakeholders within those respective departments or areas of your business that it is ultimately going to impact, and have them involved in the early upfront, which will help that buy-in later on down the road. I think another thing is to really consider once you define what you want to impact, what do you want to see and how you define success, meaning, how are we going to actually measure saying, hey, we implemented this new software, it was successful? Well, are there any metrics? Is there any data that you can actually track to actually show that? Maybe we wanted to save 1 hour's worth of work out in the field by giving our employees iPads so they didn't have to walk back to trailers. How are we tracking that metric today? And how do we, anticipate that metric being impacted and having that actually reflect upon the successfulness of this implementation of this new technology? So we really want to think about the different metrics that are out there to actually measure the success of your technology, which ultimately will drive how much others buy in and actually be able to sell leadership on the next idea that you might have. And then, like I said, really finding those other people to support you. Like I said, we always wish it would be our boss. Sometimes it is, and it's great. But sometimes it's, your coworker, your next door neighbor in the cubicle next to you, someone out in the field. But the more people that you can get to buy in and understand that that true business need, and now all of a sudden 6 people, 10 people are making that business case, and it's not just coming from the technology guy, it really gets a lot more receptiveness from leadership.
Right. And I think, the point that you're making ties in really well with what we're talking about here. It's the idea of company culture. Where does company culture come from? It comes from kind of groupthink, right? It's how everybody responding together, what's the end result, and when we're all pulling in one direction. And the more people that you have who are agreeing with you, who are saying, yes, this is the way to go, the more positive result you're going to get, and the easier you're going to, the easier time you'll have convincing people. So I think that's a great point. So, I think, to kind of sum it up here today, understanding your company culture is a really important part of implementing or even just proposing a new technology. I think that, simply throwing new toys into the mix isn't a good answer, even though I like it. It's a problem when it has the potential to disrupt the corporate, hive mind. And it can lead to major resistance and failure of even your most carefully planned projects on the tech side if you haven't accounted for the way that your internal corporate society is going to receive your proposal. So that's the stuff y'all need to think about, right? So I think that kind of wraps it up for today's topic. Unless anybody want to throw anything else in here before we close it out today? Travis?
No, I think we covered everything.
Okay, good. Rocco, you good?
I'm good.
You better be
Thank
good,
you,
because I
Travis.
wasn't going to let you talk anyway.
You see how mean he is, Travis?
Oh, and I can't believe you deal with that every day.
I'm saying, man. All right. So I also want to thank Travis for being here with us again today and sharing his expertise, even though by this point he really does know what knuckleheads he has to talk to with Rocco and I, but he keeps coming back. So we do appreciate it, Travis. Thank you again for being here, and I hope you'll be willing to come back yet again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem.
Thanks, Travis.
All right, we are going to get out of here, everybody, and we'll catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all.